Congratulations, Anya. The Aegis Heart project is complete. You, however, are not. Ethan Crowley's voice, a cold and sharp instrument of power, was the final punctuation mark on my career at Nexus Dynamics. As he spoke, my computer screen, the very window into my life's work, flickered once and then went dark. A simple, final, fatal action that locked me out of the system I had dedicated 2 years of my life to building. A deep, sickening chill crawled up my spine, a sensation far colder than the office's air conditioning. I felt the breath leave my lungs, my heart pounding a panicked rhythm against my ribs. I slowly looked up at him, stunned into a temporary silence. At 36, he was a perfect specimen of ruthless ambition, his tailored suit and slicked-back hair a meticulous facade for the venomous snake coiled beneath. His eyes, however, betrayed the smug satisfaction of a predator who had just trapped its unsuspecting prey. He stood with his arms crossed, a posture of victory, a casual menace that filled the quiet space between us. "What do you mean?" I finally managed to ask, my heart pounding so hard I felt dizzy, a physical manifestation of the betrayal. "I built this entire system. I'm the lead architect. I have access to everything. Not anymore." He cut me off, a thin, white envelope sliding across my desk, the paper crisp and cold against my trembling fingers. "Your access has been revoked. This is your termination notice. A company-wide restructuring, you understand. A shame, really, given the circumstances. But such is life. Best of luck on your new path." The envelope felt heavy, a single piece of paper that weighed more than all the sleepless nights and sacrificed weekends I had poured into this company. My mind reeled. A company-wide restructuring? In the past 6 months, the only people who had been restructured were anyone who posed even a remote threat to Ethan's rapid, almost unnatural ascent. The project's total value was an astonishing $960 million, a figure so massive it had been the sole focus of my existence. I had poured my heart and soul into every line of code, every architectural decision, believing I was building a legacy for myself and for Nexus Dynamics. And now, all that work was being dismissed with a single, cold, impersonal letter from a man who had been with the company for less than a year. "This is an injustice," I said, my voice barely a whisper, a stark contrast to the scream building in my chest. "You can't do this. The system, it won't work without me. There are protocols, safeguards." Ethan let out a short, hollow laugh that echoed in the cavernous, empty office space on the 25th floor of our Canaan City headquarters. The sound was full of contempt. "Oh, your concern is touching. But you seem to have forgotten one crucial detail, Anya. The intellectual property you created belongs to Nexus Dynamics. And I, as the new Chief Strategy Officer of the Aegis Group, will ensure it works flawlessly. Your job is done. Now it's time to go." He spoke with the absolute certainty of a man who believed he had every advantage. He turned and walked away, his footsteps a rhythmic, confident tattoo of victory against the polished concrete floor. He left me there, surrounded by the ghosts of my hard work and the oppressive silence of a betrayal that felt both personal and professional. My mind reeled back to a conversation with my friend and legal counsel, Kai. His warning, "Be careful with Ethan," now sounded less like advice and more like a prophecy I had been too arrogant to heed. But as the initial shock faded, a cold, hard resolve took its place. My trembling fingers slowly unclenched from the termination letter. They had stolen my work. They had betrayed me. But they had made a fatal mistake. They had underestimated me. Ethan thought that by locking me out, he had taken everything. he didn't know that the true heart of my creation didn't reside solely on Nexus Dynamics servers. It existed within a company I had quietly founded months ago with Kai's help. Parallel Edge Solutions. The game wasn't over. It was about to begin. And I, the ghost in my own funeral, was about to bring the whole house of cards crashing down. I didn't go home. The thought of being alone in my quiet apartment, wallowing in the despair of what had just happened, was unbearable. Instead, I drove straight to Kai's office, a small, unassuming building nestled among older brick structures in a quiet part of town. The termination letter was crumpled into a tight, hard ball in my passenger seat, a physical representation of the white-hot rage that was now a furnace inside me. When I walked in, he was already waiting, his expression grave, his phone sitting silently on the desk. He had heard. "He did it," I said, my voice hoarse, the words catching in my throat. "He fired me. The day before the signing. He thinks he won." Kai nodded, not looking surprised, just deeply concerned. He poured me a glass of water and sat down across from me, a stack of legal documents neatly arranged between us. "My contact at Nexus saw the email chain. They've been planning this for weeks. They wanted you to finalize everything, then cut you out of the final credit and the lucrative bonuses that come with a $960 million deal. He has no idea what he's walking into." "What about the company we set up?" I asked, my voice barely a whisper, my last shred of hope clinging to his words. "Parallel Edge Solutions." Was it enough? Was I too paranoid? A rare, slow grin spread across Kai's face, a look of profound satisfaction. "More than enough. Anya, you're not just a brilliant engineer. You're a meticulously cautious one. Remember how you insisted on that tiny clause in the Aegis contract? The one that required an authorized third-party integrator for any core system updates post-merger? I did remember. It had been a tedious, almost paranoid detail I had spent weeks lobbying for, arguing that it was a necessary failsafe for a system of this magnitude. The one that listed Parallel Edge Solutions as an approved integrator? Exactly, Kai said, his voice brimming with a quiet triumph. It's the ultimate legal firewall. They think they own the code, but without your specific authentication keys and a legally sanctioned integrator, us, the system is just a beautiful, very expensive paperweight. They can't activate the system, they can't integrate it, and they can't make it work. The signing ceremony tomorrow is a race against time for them. They think they'll sign the paperwork, get the green light, and then figure out the rest later. They're wrong. The system won't even boot up. The adrenaline surged through me again, a powerful current of defiance. Ethan and his cronies had no idea what they were up against. They had spent months planning to betray me, but in doing so, they had walked right into a trap of my own making. "When is the signing?" I asked, a new cold resolve hardening my voice. "I want to be there. I want him to see me." "The day after tomorrow, at the top of the Aegis Group Tower," Kai replied, sliding a detailed itinerary across the table. "They've invited everyone. Ethan will be there, ready to take all the credit. It's his victory lap." I looked at the documents, a meticulous plan forming in my mind. The game wasn't just about winning anymore. It was about exposing the truth. They wanted a show? I would give them a show they would never forget. "Anya, the employee, might be gone," I said, a slow smile spreading across my face. "But Anya, the founder of Parallel Edge Solutions, is about to make a very grand entrance." The next 2 days felt like an eternity and a fleeting moment all at once. Kai and I worked from his office, a small room that had been transformed into a war room fueled by endless cups of coffee and the quiet hum of my laptop. We weren't just plotting revenge. We were meticulously building a legal and technical case, a fortress of ironclad logic that Ethan couldn't breach. We reviewed every single line of the Aegis contract, cross-referencing it with the Articles of Incorporation for Parallel Edge Solutions. My original plan, a quiet, almost paranoid failsafe, was now the main weapon in our arsenal. Every detail mattered, every clause a piece of our armor. "They've already started the pre-integration," Kai said, scrolling through a public-facing corporate blog from Nexus Dynamics. "Ethan is making it sound like he personally wrote every line of code. Look at this." He pointed to a high-resolution photo of Ethan standing next to the Aegis CEO, Ms. Reynolds, shaking hands and smiling broadly. The caption beneath read, "Ethan Crowley's masterful leadership has been instrumental in the seamless integration process." A fresh wave of disgust washed over me. "He's selling them a ghost. My system isn't on their servers yet. He's just moving around placeholder files and running pre-recorded demos. He's pretending to have the keys to a kingdom he's never even set foot in." The gall of the man was breathtaking. He had no shame, no integrity. "That's the point," Kai said, his voice low and serious. "He's confident. He thinks your termination was the final step. He's probably already planning his victory speech, a perfectly crafted lie about his vision. We need to be ready for the precise moment he tries to activate the system and nothing happens. That's when we strike. I've drafted a letter to Ms. Reynolds outlining our position, but we won't send it until the moment is right. The element of surprise is our greatest advantage." I spent hours running simulations on my local server, testing the authentication protocols I had secretly built into the Aegis Heart code. The system was designed to require my specific private key for final activation. Without it, the core modules would refuse to initialize, rendering the entire $960 million deal a non-starter. This wasn't just a technical lock. It was a digital signature, a watermark of my authorship, proving without a doubt who held the true control. They had the beautiful box, but I still had the key. The code was a perfect symphony of my design, and only I knew the final, hidden note. "The signing ceremony is tomorrow at 10 a.m., Kai announced, closing his laptop. "Everything is in place. We have the legal documents, the intellectual property rights, and we have the final, untampered version of your code, all on this encrypted drive. All we need is for Ethan to make his move. The stage is set." A profound sense of calm settled over me, replacing the raw, initial rage. It was a controlled burn, channeled into pure, strategic focus. They thought I was out. They thought they had won, but they had forgotten the most basic rule of engineering. The architect always knows where the foundation lies, and in this case, I had built the foundation on my own terms, a fact that was about to bring their entire, meticulously constructed house of cards crashing down in front of a global audience. The atmosphere in the penthouse ballroom of the Aegis Group Tower was electric, a palpable tension humming beneath the polished surface of corporate grandeur. Sunlight streamed through floor-to-ceiling windows, illuminating a room filled with executives, investors, and media. A long, polished mahogany table was set up in the center, a place of power where the fate of a $960 million deal would be sealed. I stood in the back, a silent observer in a plain black dress, feeling like a ghost at my own funeral. Kai was by my side, a calm, unwavering presence in the eye of the storm. He gave me a subtle nod, a silent reminder that we were ready. On the podium, Ethan Crowley was in his element. He strode to the microphone, his smile wide and practiced, a performer basking in the limelight. "Friends, colleagues, and esteemed partners," he began, his voice booming with a confidence that bordered on arrogance. "Today is a monumental day for Nexus Dynamics and Aegis Group. We have successfully completed the largest technology merger of the decade. This would not have been possible without the tireless dedication of our incredible team." He paused, his eyes sweeping the room for applause, and they briefly met mine. For a split second, a flicker of surprise, or was it recognition, crossed his face, but he quickly dismissed it, a look of smug dismissal replacing it. He truly believed I was a non-factor, a former employee who had come to witness his victory. "The backbone of this merger is a groundbreaking system we've developed, the Aegis Heart," Ethan continued, gesturing to a large screen displaying a complex, yet static, flowchart of my architecture. "It is my honor to say that this system is fully integrated and ready for activation." As he spoke, a technician on stage clicked a button, and a new screen appeared. It showed a simple interface with a large Activate button. The room fell into a hushed silence in anticipation. Ethan walked to the console, his hand hovering over the button, savoring the moment. This was it, the moment of truth. "And now, with the signing of this document," Ethan declared, holding up a pristine legal folder, "we will officially bring the Aegis Heart online." He signed the document with a flourish, then turned back to the activation console. As his finger touched the button, a tiny pop-up window appeared on the screen. It was an error message I had personally designed, a digital fingerprint of my control. "Authentication failure. Unauthorized access." The activation button remained grayed out, unresponsive. The room was silent, a single, audible gasp breaking the tension. Ethan's smile vanished, replaced by a look of confusion. He tried again, his finger pressing the button repeatedly, his face flushing with a panic he was desperately trying to hide. "There must be a slight technical delay," he stammered, trying to laugh it off. "It's a new system, you understand?" But the technician on stage was shaking his head, his own face pale. "Mr. Crowley, the system is rejecting the command. It's asking for a specific security key. I don't have it." Ethan's panicked eyes darted across the room, finally locking onto mine. In that moment, he knew. He knew exactly what had happened. He had stolen the architecture, but he had forgotten the architect. The ballroom descended into a cacophony of panicked whispers. Aegis executives were huddling, their faces a mixture of confusion and fury, their $960 million deal teetering on the brink of spectacular failure. Ethan was frantically talking into his earpiece, his bravado completely shattered, the veneer of his confidence cracking under the pressure. As the tension peaked, I calmly walked from the back of the room, my footsteps measured and deliberate, toward the podium. Ethan saw me coming, and his face turned a pasty white. "What are you doing here?" he hissed, his voice low and menacing. "You're not authorized to be here." The Aegis CEO, a sharp-featured woman named Ms. Reynolds, stepped forward, her expression a mask of cold fury. "Who is this?" she demanded, her voice cutting through the noise. I looked directly at Ms. Reynolds, ignoring Ethan entirely. "My name is Anya, and I am the architect of the Aegis Heart system. I believe your activation has failed because the system is seeking my private key for authentication. And with all due respect, I am no longer an employee of Nexus Dynamics." Ethan lunged toward me, his hand outstretched, as if to physically silence me. "She's lying. She's a disgruntled employee. I have the legal documents right here," Kai said, stepping forward with a calm confidence that belied the chaos. He handed a leather-bound binder to Ms. Reynolds. "Anya, as the founder of Parallel Edge Solutions, holds the intellectual property rights and the exclusive authorization to integrate the core system. It's all in your merger contract, in the fine print. Section 3, subsection 7. Ms. Reynolds quickly scanned the documents, her eyes widening as she read the precise legal language. She then looked at Ethan, a chilling coldness in her gaze that promised utter professional ruin. "Mr. Crowley, you assured us this was a turnkey solution. You assured us the key personnel were in place." Ethan stammered, his lies crumbling around him. "The clause is invalid. It was a mistake. An oversight." "An oversight that has just cost you everything," Ms. Reynolds said, her voice like ice. She turned to me, her demeanor completely changed, a calculating respect replacing her anger. "Ms. Anya, can you activate the system?" I walked to the console, the same one Ethan had just failed to operate. The screen still showed the error message. I pulled out a small, encrypted USB drive, inserted it, and a new prompt appeared. "Enter private key." I entered the long, complex string of characters, a digital signature that was uniquely mine. A moment later, the screen flashed a brilliant green. The Activate button lit up. I pressed it. On the large display screen, the static flowchart exploded into a dynamic, vibrant animation of code and data flowing seamlessly. The logo for Aegis Heart appeared, followed by the words, "System Online." The applause was deafening, but it wasn't for Ethan. It was for me. Ethan Crowley was led out of the room by security, his career and his reputation utterly destroyed. Ms. Reynolds's offer of a position as chief strategist was a testament to my skills. I smiled and shook her hand, but politely declined. I explained that I had my own company now, Parallel Edge Solutions, and was happy to provide my architectural services as a partner, not an employee. She accepted with a gracious nod. I had been betrayed, but in the end, I hadn't just won. I had rewritten my own story and found true freedom in the process. The thunderous applause slowly died down, leaving an even more powerful, shocked silence in its wake. The penthouse ballroom, once a stage for Ethan's grand performance, was now a scene of corporate turmoil. Ms. Reynolds, the Aegis CEO, was staring at me with a mix of awe, disbelief, and a newfound profound respect that was almost palpable. Ethan Crowley, who just moments ago was the man of the hour, was now a footnote, his reputation shattered and his corporate ambitions reduced to dust. As two silent security guards escorted him away, his form shrinking with every step, he shot me a final, empty look, not of anger, but of a man who had gambled everything on a lie and lost it all in the most public way imaginable. The sheer emptiness in his eyes was almost pitiful, a stark contrast to the smug arrogance he had displayed just minutes earlier. "Ms. Anya," Ms. Reynolds said, her voice still laced with admiration as she gestured for me to join her in a quiet corner of the ballroom, away from the buzzing crowd of media and executives. "That was unexpected, but also brilliant. Your company, Parallel Edge Solutions. How did you manage to embed it so deeply in the legal framework without anyone noticing?" She was a formidable woman, a true leader, and I could tell she was already recalculating the entire deal in her mind. "I made it a condition of the core system's functionality," I explained, feeling a surge of confidence that was completely new to me. The code's complexity required ongoing support from its original architect. It was a failsafe, a way to ensure the integrity of the project even if the team changed. I just never imagined I'd be using it to protect myself from my own company. The irony is not lost on me. My voice was calm, a stark contrast to the turmoil I had felt just days before. The next hour was a whirlwind of damage control and new negotiations. The CEO of Nexus Dynamics, a blustering, red-faced man named Mr. Harrington, arrived, his face a mask of furious confusion. He tried to argue, to claim that the contract was invalid and that I had committed a criminal act by sabotaging the system. But Kai was a step ahead of him. He calmly presented the signed, notarized documents, proving that not only was the clause in the contract legal, but that I, as the architect, was the sole person with the authority to activate the core system. Mr. Harrington's bluster quickly deflated, and he was left to face the wrath of his own board and the public scrutiny of a deal he had almost let his own arrogance destroy. The $960 million deal was now squarely in my hands, a testament to foresight and meticulous planning. Ms. Reynolds pulled me aside once more, her demeanor shifting from professional to almost personal. "You are clearly an extraordinary individual, Ms. Anya. We need someone like you on our team. I want to offer you a position as our chief strategist. The salary will be substantial, and you'll have full creative control. You could build your own team, shape the future of Aegis." It was a staggering offer, a dream job for many, but it wasn't what I wanted. I looked out the window at the sprawling Kainan city below, a city that was now a chessboard where I had just won the most important game of my life. The victory wasn't about a title or a salary. It was about autonomy. "I appreciate the offer, Ms. Reynolds," I said, a genuine smile on my face. "But I've already built my own company. I'm happy to serve as a partner, providing my services through Parallel Edge Solutions. I'm not interested in being an employee anymore. I want to build something for myself, on my own terms, and with a team I trust." She accepted with a gracious nod, a new respect in her eyes. I had been betrayed, but in the end, I hadn't just won. I had found freedom. The news of the scandal spread like wildfire, consuming every corner of the tech world and beyond. For weeks, my name, Anya, was splashed across headlines, dominating social media feeds and becoming the subject of countless podcasts and news segments. The story was a potent mix of corporate intrigue, audacious individual triumph, and a modern David and Goliath tale that captivated the public imagination. "Junior Architect's ingenious move saves multi-million-dollar deal," screamed one headline, accompanied by a grainy photo of me walking out of the Aegis Tower. "Nexus Dynamics betrayal backfires spectacularly," read another, detailing Ethan Crowley's swift and ignominious downfall. Overnight, my quiet existence as a dedicated, albeit somewhat reclusive software architect was shattered. I was an unlikely hero, and my story resonated with a deep-seated desire for justice in the corporate world, proving that a single individual with foresight and integrity could stand up to a large, corrupt corporation and win. My inbox became a relentless torrent of emails, interview requests from major news outlets, partnership proposals from startups and established tech giants alike, venture capitalists eager to throw money at the next big thing, and a myriad of others all wanting a piece of the story or a piece of my new company. My phone, once primarily a tool for work and calls with Kai, now rang incessantly, its persistent buzzing a constant reminder of the upheaval my life had undergone. The sheer volume was overwhelming, a cacophony of opportunity and demand that left me feeling strangely adrift amidst the sudden fame. I spent the next few weeks mostly at home, attempting to recover from the emotional and mental exhaustion that had settled deep in my bones. The betrayal had left deeper scars than I had initially realized, a lingering ache of distrust that gnawed at me even in moments of triumph. I hadn't just won a legal battle, I had won my freedom, a liberation that felt both exhilarating and terrifying. The cost, though undeniable, now seemed like a necessary sacrifice. I was no longer an employee chained to someone else's vision, bound by corporate hierarchy and the whims of power-hungry executives. My company, Parallel Edge Solutions, was no longer just a legal maneuver. It was a legitimate, sought-after partner for one of the largest tech companies in the world. The phone rang off the hook, not with threats, but with offers, each one a testament to the power of a meticulously executed plan. Amidst the deluge of external demands, I began the quiet work of building. My first priority was assembling a team. Calls came from former colleagues at Nexus Dynamics, people who had witnessed Ethan's systematic purge firsthand, offering their congratulations and subtly asking for job opportunities. I politely declined most, seeking not just talent, but a shared ethos. I needed individuals who understood the value of integrity, who were passionate about their craft, and who, like me, had experienced the sting of corporate disillusionment. I found a small group of talented engineers who had also been pushed out by Ethan's power grab, or who had simply grown tired of the toxic environment he fostered. There was Lena, a brilliant data scientist with an uncanny ability to find patterns in chaos, who had been sidelined for questioning Ethan's inflated project estimates. Then there was Marcus, a seasoned network architect, whose quiet efficiency was mistaken for a lack of ambition by the old guard. He had been passed over for promotions countless times. And finally, Chloe, a young, fiery front-end developer whose innovative designs were constantly watered down by corporate committees. They were a tight-knit team, united by a shared history of being underestimated and a burning desire to create something truly exceptional. I knew they would be a perfect fit for the type of work I wanted to do: innovative, meaningful, and done on our own terms. They became the first employees of Parallel Edge Solutions, and together, we began to build our future, brick by digital brick. Our first major project was, of course, completing the integration of the Aegis Heart. Working with Ms. Reynolds and her team at Aegis was a vastly different experience than anything I had known at Nexus Dynamics. There were no tyrannical deadlines imposed by clueless managers, no constant fear of betrayal lurking in the shadows, no long hours spent second-guessing my decisions or battling for proper credit. Instead, there was an atmosphere of mutual respect, open communication, and genuine collaboration. Ms. Reynolds, a shrewd businesswoman, understood the value of true expertise and gave us the autonomy we needed to excel. She trusted my judgment implicitly, a stark contrast to Ethan's constant micromanagement and attempts to undermine my authority. "Anya," she said during one of our early integration meetings, her gaze sharp and intelligent, "I must admit, your foresight saved us from a colossal disaster. We had no idea the extent of Mr. Crowley's misrepresentations. How can we ensure this kind of legal loophole never happens again for Aegis?" "Transparency and clear contracts, Miss Reynolds," I replied, feeling a quiet satisfaction. "And trusting the people who actually build the systems." My team at Parallel Edge Solutions is committed to both. We believe in full disclosure, clear intellectual property agreements, and a collaborative approach that benefits everyone involved. This was the core of my quiet revolution. It wasn't about shouting from the rooftops or engaging in public feuds. It was about demonstrating through action and results that a different way of doing business was possible. A way built on trust, integrity, and genuine innovation, rather than corporate politics and backstabbing. We focused on delivering impeccable work, on time, and within budget, proving that our small, agile team could outperform the bloated, dysfunctional structures of traditional corporations. The success of the Aegis Heart integration under Parallel Edge Solutions became a case study in the industry. Other companies, wary of similar internal betrayals, began to approach us, seeking our expertise in secure system architecture and legal safeguards. We were becoming known not just for our technical prowess, but for our ethical approach to business. I was not a pawn in someone else's game. I was the player, the architect of not only a system, but also of my own destiny. The quiet revolution I had started was more than just a win for me. It was a victory for every person who had been overlooked, underestimated, or betrayed by a corrupt system. I had proven that true power wasn't about being loud or aggressive, but about being meticulous, strategic, and most importantly, having the courage to stand up for your own work. It was a message that resonated far beyond the corporate world, a beacon for anyone who felt trapped and powerless, showing them that a different path, a path to true autonomy and respect, was indeed possible. The long nights were still there, but now they were filled with the exhilaration of creation, not the dread of exploitation. This was my legacy, built on my terms. My newfound freedom, however, came with its own set of challenges, ones I hadn't anticipated in the heat of battle. The immediate aftermath of the Aegis deal was a whirlwind of public attention that threatened to consume me whole. My phone, once a tool for quiet collaboration and focused work, was now a buzzing, vibrating extension of the outside world, relentlessly demanding my attention. Requests for interviews poured in from major news networks, tech magazines, and even morning talk shows. Invitations to speak at prestigious tech conferences, to sit on panels discussing corporate ethics, and to be featured on magazine covers arrived daily. I was a celebrity in the tech world, an overnight sensation, and it was utterly overwhelming. I was an architect, not a public figure. My comfort zone was the quiet solitude of working on complex algorithms, the focused intensity of debugging code, the silent satisfaction of seeing a system come to life. The constant attention felt suffocating, a heavy blanket of expectation draped over every aspect of my life. Every public appearance felt like a performance, every word carefully weighed, every smile a conscious effort. I craved the quiet hum of my servers, the logical flow of my code, not the endless demands of public life. The victory, for all its glory and the immense financial implications of the $960 million deal, felt strangely hollow in the midst of all the noise and chaos. It was a golden cage, albeit one of my own making. The relentless pressure began to take its toll. My sleep became fractured, my appetite dwindled, and the sharp clarity of my thoughts, once my greatest asset, felt dulled by the constant external clamor. I found myself staring blankly at my laptop, unable to focus on the new projects that were piling up for parallel edge solutions. The very thing I had fought for, the freedom to build, was being overshadowed by the demands of being Anya, the hero. One evening, unable to bear another notification, another ringing phone, another email, I finally made a decisive move. I turned off my phone, the small click of the power button a surprisingly liberating sound. I left it on the kitchen counter, a silent, dark rectangle, and walked out of my apartment. The cool night air of Kainan City was a balm against my feverish skin. A gentle breeze rustled the leaves on the trees lining the quiet residential streets, and the streetlights cast a soft, inviting glow on the pavement. For the first time in weeks, I felt a profound, almost spiritual sense of peace. My steps were slow and deliberate, each one a conscious act of reclaiming my space, my time, my solitude. I walked past familiar houses, their windows glowing with the warm light of family life, and felt a pang of something akin to longing. The sounds of distant traffic were muted, replaced by the chirping of crickets and the rustle of leaves. The anonymity of the night was a precious gift. No one here knew Anya, the tech hero. Here, I was just Anya, a woman taking a walk, breathing in the cool air, and slowly, painstakingly, unwinding the tightly wound springs of my mind. I realized, with a clarity that hit me like a revelation, that my victory wasn't about the money or the fame. It wasn't about the public vindication or the downfall of Ethan Crowley. It was about the simple, profound joy of doing my work on my own terms, free from manipulation and betrayal. The quiet satisfaction of solving a complex problem, of seeing elegant code function flawlessly, was what truly drove me. The true prize wasn't the millions. It was the ability to find peace and control in my own life, to define my own success, not have it defined for me by headlines or corporate metrics. As I walked, my thoughts drifted inevitably to my past, to my family. My mother, a quiet woman with eyes that held endless understanding, had always been my biggest supporter. She was the one who bought me my first coding book, who patiently listened to my excited ramblings about algorithms, even when she didn't understand a word. But our relationship had been strained, stretched thin by my obsessive work schedule. In my single-minded pursuit of my career, my relentless drive to build the Aegis heart, I had forgotten the people who mattered most. I hadn't spoken to her in months, completely absorbed in my projects, rationalizing my absence with, "I'm so busy, Mom. This project is huge." The guilt was a dull ache I had suppressed for too long. The victory felt incomplete, hollow even, without sharing it with her, without hearing her quiet, affirming voice. When I got back home, the dark rectangle of my phone still lay silently on the kitchen counter. I hesitated for a long moment, my thumb hovering over the power button. The fear of judgment, of her quiet disappointment, was almost paralyzing. But the longing to hear her voice, to truly connect, was stronger. I took a deep breath, pressed the button, and watched the screen flicker to life, a small beacon in the quiet apartment. I navigated to her contact, my fingers trembling slightly as I pressed call. "Hi, Mom," I said, my voice shaky, a knot forming in my throat. It felt like years since I had truly spoken to her, not just exchanged hurried updates. "It's Anya. I'm so sorry I haven't called." Her voice, when it came, was warm and gentle, without a hint of reproach, only boundless love. "I know, dear. I've seen you on the news. I'm so proud of you. I always knew you would do great things. Are you okay, really?" And then, the dam broke. We talked for hours, the phone warm against my ear. I told her everything, from the initial seeds of doubt about Ethan, to the meticulous planning with Kai, the shock of the termination, the dramatic showdown in the Aegis Tower, and the overwhelming aftermath of fame. I described the betrayal, the raw fear, and the ultimate exhilarating victory. I told her about my new company, Parallel Edge Solutions, and my newfound freedom, the joy of building something truly my own. She listened patiently, interjecting only with soft murmurs of understanding or quiet gasps of surprise. When I was finished, a silence fell, not awkward, but full. Then she spoke, her voice infused with the quiet wisdom of a lifetime. "You were always meant for great things, Anya. You have a gift. But remember, dear, true success isn't just about what you build or how much money you make. It's about how you live, who you share your life with. Just don't forget to enjoy them, and don't forget the people who love you, who are there for you, no matter what." That conversation was the final, crucial piece of my victory. I had won the battle against corporate greed, but I had also reclaimed my life, my balance, my soul. I had the respect of my peers, the freedom to choose my own projects, and a renewed, deeper connection with the person who had always believed in me unconditionally. The money was a nice bonus, a tool for new opportunities, but the true prize was the profound peace of mind that came with knowing I was finally in control of my own story, both professionally and personally. I was no longer just an architect of systems. I was the architect of my own destiny, and it felt like coming home. The chaos of the penthouse ballroom had subsided, but the echoes of my quiet revolution reverberated throughout the city. Kai and I sat in a small, elegant coffee shop a few blocks away, the energy from the day's events still coursing through my veins. The clinking of porcelain and the low murmur of conversation were a stark contrast to the dramatic spectacle we had just orchestrated. We were both silent, sipping our coffees, an unspoken understanding passing between us. The tension that had held me for weeks finally began to dissipate, replaced by a profound, if a little shaky, sense of victory. "You were magnificent, Anya," Kai said, breaking the silence with a genuine smile. "I've never seen anything like it. You didn't just win, you exposed them for what they were. The entire tech world is buzzing. Parallel Edge Solutions is the name on everyone's lips." I smiled back, but it felt more like a physical release than an emotional one. "It wasn't just me, Kai. It was us. I couldn't have done it without you. Your legal foresight was the true engine of this whole thing. I just provided the car. A very fast, very complex car that only you could drive," he chuckled, raising his cup in a toast. "To freedom." As we left the coffee shop, the media frenzy that had been contained within the Aegis Tower seemed to have spilled out onto the streets. A dozen reporters with cameras and microphones descended upon us. Ms. Anya, can you comment on the scandal at Nexus Dynamics? What will happen to the Aegis Heart project now? Is Ethan Crowley facing legal action?" I held my head high, a newfound confidence radiating from me. I had faced down a powerful man on a public stage. A few journalists were nothing. "The Aegis Heart project will proceed as planned, with my company, Parallel Edge Solutions, at the helm," I stated, my voice clear and steady. "As for the rest, justice will take its course." That night, my apartment felt different. It was no longer a cage I returned to after a grueling day, but a sanctuary. I sat on my couch, the city lights of Canaan City twinkling outside my window, and for the first time in 2 years, I truly relaxed. I was free. But as my phone buzzed with an unknown number, a sense of unease returned. It was an email, not from a journalist, but from Mr. Harrington, the CEO of Nexus Dynamics. The subject line read, "A final proposition." I opened it, my curiosity warring with my exhaustion. It was a long, rambling message, filled with veiled threats and desperate pleas. He acknowledged the legal situation, admitting that Kai's work was airtight. But then came the core of his message, the final, subtle temptation. He offered me a significant stake in Nexus Dynamics, a role on the board, and a public apology. "It was all Ethan's doing," he wrote. "We can fix this. You can be the hero who saved the company, not just yourself. You can have a public victory and control over the very place that wronged you." The offer was a masterful piece of psychological manipulation. He knew what had driven me, the desire for recognition, for control over my work. He was offering to give me a piece of the kingdom I had just burned down. It was a tempting proposition, a shortcut to power, without the hard work of building a company from scratch. But as I read his words, I felt a familiar coldness. He wasn't offering me power. He was offering me a golden cage. He wanted to reabsorb me, to neutralize the threat I posed, and use my victory to save his own skin. He had seen my power, but he still didn't understand its source. I picked up my phone and drafted my reply. It was short, concise, and final. "Thank you for the offer, Mr. Harrington. But I have already found my path. My company, Parallel Edge Solutions, is built on trust and integrity. It is not for sale. Anya." I pressed send, and with that single action, I closed the door on my past. I was no longer a pawn. I was the one who controlled the board. 6 months passed, and the whirlwind of the scandal began to settle into a steady, persistent hum. The news cycles moved on, but the story of my victory remained a legend in the tech world. Parallel Edge Solutions was no longer just a legal entity. It was a flourishing business. Our first office was a modest but bright space, a world away from the sterile, oppressive environment of Nexus Dynamics. It was filled with laughter, collaboration, and a shared passion for our work. My new team, a small group of brilliant engineers who, like me, had been pushed out by corporate politics, was the heart of the company. We were building something new, something honest, and something that was truly our own. Our partnership with Aegis Group was a resounding success. The Aegis Heart system, once a source of conflict, was now a shining example of what could be achieved with the right team and the right leadership. Ms. Reynolds was not just a client. She was a partner and a mentor, and our professional relationship was built on a foundation of mutual respect and trust. One quiet afternoon, I was in my office, not a grand corner suite, but a simple desk with a view of the city. I was reviewing some code for a new project, a complex data visualization system for a startup. The problem was intricate, a beautiful puzzle that required my full attention. As I lost myself in the logic and syntax, a profound sense of peace washed over me. This was it. This was the true prize. Not the money, not the fame, not the position of power in a corrupt corporation. It was the joy of the work itself, done on my own terms, with no one looking over my shoulder, no one trying to take credit. I picked up my phone and saw a notification, a photo from my mother. It was a simple picture of her in her garden, a radiant smile on her face. We had reconnected deeply in the months since the scandal, our relationship rebuilt stronger than ever. The forced distance of my workaholic life was a thing of the past. I called her, and we talked for over an hour, not about business or the new projects, but about her roses and my dog. The story of my victory had been about a battle against betrayal, but the true triumph was the life I had built for myself in its wake. Ethan Crowley had thought he could steal my creation, but he had inadvertently given me the greatest gift of all, the freedom to create something new, something real, and something entirely mine. Power, I had learned, was not about being in charge of others, but about being in charge of yourself. It was about controlling your own narrative, writing your own story, and finding peace in your own terms. My victory was not a roar of triumph. It was a quiet, satisfied smile at the end of a long, fulfilling day. And in that moment, I realized I had everything I had ever truly wanted. Anya's story isn't just a tale of revenge, but a powerful lesson in self-reliance, courage, and foresight. Her greatest takeaway is the importance of having a fail-safe plan. By anticipating betrayal and proactively creating her own company, Anya protected her work and intellectual property. This teaches us that our true value lies not in a job title, which can be taken away, but in our skills and expertise, which are our own. The story also highlights the power of strategic action over emotional reaction. Instead of lashing out in anger, Anya chose to remain silent, observe, and wait for the perfect moment to act. She turned her enemy's arrogance into her greatest advantage. Ultimately, Anya's victory wasn't about seizing a position of power, but about finding genuine happiness in her newfound freedom and purpose. She redefined success on her own terms, proving that inner peace and control over one's own life are far more valuable than any corporate title. Thank you for following Anya's story. I hope you found it engaging and took away some valuable lessons. If you have another video you'd like me to analyze and write a story from, please feel free to share it. I'm ready for the next one.